He said, "We mean you no harm. We wish you only happiness." And I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was called Cold. That was the name that he was called by.
There is a man who is not of this world. He has been seen by some, he has spoken to others, and has attacked an unlucky few. His name is Indrid Cold. Indrid Cold, also known as the Grinning Man. He is said to come from the planet Lanulos in the Ganymede galaxy, 14.6 light-years away from Earth. He is what he calls a searcher. Quite what this means is unknown. Some say that he is a member of the secret Men in Black organization. Others say that he is an alien visitor who is simply curious about us humans and is interested in learning all he can about humanity. Indrid Cold is said to have a human-like appearance. In his first sighting, he was described as being over 6 feet tall and wearing a reflective green suit with a black belt. He had a dark complexion, like that of a person who had spent a lot of time in the sun. He was also described as having small, beady eyes that were set far apart. In his first known encounter with humans, Indrid Cold appeared not to have a nose, any ears, or any hair on his face or head. He was much more alien in appearance, conforming more with traditional descriptions of aliens, such as the Greys, who have only nostrils and no noses, and no ears or hair. In his second known encounter, his suit was said to be blue instead of green, but still retained its reflective properties. This was not the only difference, however. This time he was described as looking more or less in line with a human being's appearance, now having a nose and ears. He had also grown hair, which was slicked back, and wore a coat with the top 2 buttons undone, with trousers that seemed to be made of the same unearthly material. He was again described as being quite tanned, though not dark, and looking like any normal human being, albeit with an enormous grin. The fact that Cold had gained a more natural-looking appearance, more in line with how human beings generally look, would suggest that he has some shape-shifting abilities, or access to an advanced technology that allows him to mimic the appearance of humans. On the 2nd day of November 1966, in Parkersburg, West Virginia, a sewing machine salesman by the name of Woodrow Derenberger, who would come to be synonymous with the legend of Indrid Cold, was driving home on Interstate 77 when he was overtaken by another vehicle. Behind the overtaking vehicle was a strangely shaped UFO. The UFO then moved in front of Mr. Derenberger's truck and began to slow down, forcing Mr. Derenberger to slow down also until he had come to a complete stop. Mr. Derenberger sat stationary, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. He described the UFO as looking like an old-fashioned kerosene lamp chimney, flaring at both ends, narrowing down to a small neck, and then enlarging in a great bulge in the center. Mr. Derenberger was still trying to make sense of what was happening when suddenly an automatic door began to open on the strange craft. This bizarre event was about to get even stranger. From inside the strangely shaped UFO emerged what looked like a man with tanned skin and an enormous, unusually large grin. The grinning man walked up to Derenberger and began to communicate with him, though not by speaking. The man telepathically asked Derenberger to roll down the window of his truck, which he did. The strange entity then asked what his name was, and after he told him, the strange visitor said his name was Cold. Cold seemed to be non-aggressive, and he told Derenberger that he meant him no harm and only wished him happiness. Derenberger then reported that Cold asked him what the nearby town was called, while not pointing to the nearby town of Parkersburg physically, but somehow doing so telepathically. Derenberger told him the name of the town, and Cold then asked if all the people lived there, to which Derenberger told him that the town proper was mostly comprised of workplaces, and that people generally lived in the outskirts of the town. In their brief telepathic conversation, Cold said he simply wanted to know more about the human race and that he would be visiting Derenberger again. Derenberger stated that during this telepathic conversation, Cold revealed his planet of origin, Lanulos, in the Ganymede galaxy. Lanulos, some 14.6 light-years from Earth in the Ganymede galaxy of stars, was originally settled eons ago by people from Earth. Many thousands of years ago, human beings were capable of space travel. Our knowledge of space travel, however, had been lost somewhere down the line and only recently rediscovered. Their new planet was much like Earth, though the yearly cycle had only 3 seasons: planting, harvest, and cold. It seemed that now humans had regained their knowledge of space travel, and with radio communications now being sent out into space 24/7, the Lanulosians had found us. Now back in contact, the Lanulosians who had made their way to Earth could easily pass for human. On October 16th, 1966, Indrid Cold was seen for the first time when 2 boys, Martin Munov and James Yanchitis from New Jersey, were walking on 4th Street when they saw a surreal figure standing near a fence. As they walked closer, they saw that the figure was a tall, bald man with no ears or nose and was wearing a metal green suit. He was staring right at them with an enormous grin. The strange man then began to chase them until they managed to get away. UFO sightings were also reported around the area at this time. It could be that this was Indrid Cold's first attempt at contact and communication with humans. His first visit would mean perhaps that he was somewhat ignorant of the ways of human beings. To suddenly start running at someone could, perhaps, be a perfectly acceptable way of approaching another person on Lanulos. On Earth, however, it would be taken as threatening. His appearance also would be enough to startle most people on Earth. It could be that, after this encounter, he learned that his natural appearance with no nose and ears would need to be adjusted in order to not frighten people away. After taking this information on board, it would seem that he was ready to try again, and at this point managed to contact and communicate with Woodrow Derenberger. 2 days after the first conversation with Indrid Cold, while driving in his car, Derenberger began to receive a telepathic communication from the man he had seen earlier. He supplied some information about his life, including the observation that people on his planet lived from 125 to 175 Earth years. Over the next few weeks, other stories would accumulate that substantiated at least parts of Derenberger's story, including independent UFO sightings on November 4th. Throughout this period, Derenberger's direct contacts with Indrid Cold continued. He learned much about Cold's people and their desire for friendly contact with the people of Earth. In 1967, Cold took Derenberger to visit the planet Lanulos. Around the same time in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, Indrid Cold seemed to also be attempting to contact people other than Woodrow Derenberger. The Lilly family of Point Pleasant had been reporting poltergeist activity in their home. One night, the Lilly's daughter, Linda, was sleeping and awoke to find a man standing over her. Linda Lilly reported that she couldn't see his face very well, but could see that he was grinning at her. He then walked around the bed and stood right over her. She screamed again and hid under the covers, and when she looked again, he was gone. At this point in the late 1960s, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, another well-known cryptid was said to be in the area and was being sighted quite frequently. The Mothman, a large, flying creature with glowing red eyes that was said to appear in areas where disasters were soon to occur. The Mothman was sighted in Point Pleasant only days before the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge, which killed 46 people. The fact that both the Mothman and Indrid Cold were in Point Pleasant at the same time is a point of interest for many researchers. Could it be that Indrid Cold was connected to the Mothman in some way? Cold related to Derenberger that the people of Lanulos are religious and believe in one god. They have a spoken language but tend to communicate via telepathy. They have no crime or war. Their government is loosely organised around a 56-person guiding council whose members are elected every 6 months. If a member proves unfit, he or she is dismissed and another elected to fill the vacancy. Marriage is common among the Lanulosians. Cold indicated to Woodrow Derenberger that he had a wife and 2 children. Cold also told Derenberger that the Lanulosians, while not warlike, were engaged in business and desired to establish trade with Earth. However, they found their attempts to form a relationship rebuffed. They had approached the American government but found officials unwilling to guarantee their safety. On occasions when they had attempted to land, they had been met with hostility, and Cold indicated that he had received wounds from a shotgun on one occasion. Derenberger told his story frequently over the next few years, and in 1971, with the assistance of Harold W. Hubbard, he authored a book-length account of his adventures, Visitors from Lanulos. His story was also given extended treatment by writer John A. Keel, author of the Mothman Prophecies. In April 2021, Indrid Cold contacted a Mothman witness. An anonymous woman from upstate New York, USA, who only gave the name Jessica, had been witness to a large flying creature with a 12-foot wingspan, red glowing eyes, and appeared not to have a head, although it was humanoid in shape. She described it as a dark, flying man. After reporting these sightings, she described receiving strange phone calls. On each of these phone calls, the caller ID stated the name Indrid Cold, with no other information being displayed. On these phone calls, she reports that Indrid Cold warned her not to talk about her recent Mothman sightings, telling her that she saw nothing, in a voice that she described as sounding like it was coming through gritted teeth, like that of a huge grin. Strange stuff indeed. It has long been theorized that human beings in the distant past may have been much more advanced than we give them credit for, even more advanced than we are today. If humans managed to leave the Earth all those years ago and settled elsewhere, it's entirely possible that they could have found their way back, and that Indrid Cold could be a member of this race of people. If there are aliens among us who look like we do and are barely distinguishable from the average person, then it may explain the recent boom in technological advances we have seen over the past 20 years. The smartphone you use every day, the tablet you own, the internet, and even the device you're using to watch this video could all be in existence because of beings like Indrid Cold.